New reporting on a partisan purge.
Multiple heads of FBI field offices across the country and about 24 prosecutors who investigated Capitol rioters.
It can only be described as the start of a massive purge at the FBI.
There is so much going on at FBI right now. What we're reading in the headlines that's framing up this contention between Trump and the FBI, that's just kind of media buzz. In fact, what's happening is that Trump is now taking action against what he believes to be a fundamental flaw in FBI. Instead of pursuing meaningful cases, they pursue these shiny object cases that are going to give them a straight shot to the top.
That's what Trump is attacking.
Weaponization of FBI. So some of what Donald Trump is doing is necessary, but he's also taking some missteps along the way. Can you give us a sense of that?
Yeah, definitely. Here's the big mistake that I see.
Headlines are saying that Donald Trump is in a battle with FBI, and the truth is very different than what you're reading in the headlines. I'm actually joined today by retired FBI Special Agent Jim DiOrio, a good friend of mine, one of the most intelligent and best voices on FBI right now that you can find anywhere. We're going to tune in with Jim and find out what's actually happening right now between Donald Trump and FBI. Jim, there is so much going on at FBI right now. I think the most recent headline I saw said that they're calling it a battle between the FBI and Trump. Now, there's some unique things about FBI that are very different than CIA, but I want to hear your thoughts on what's happening macro level between the FBI and the current Trump administration, and what's right about it, what's wrong about it.
Yeah, man. You know, you and I had talked, and we had talked about this not too long ago and then long ago, right? We had talked about the issues that are going to come to light if and when this election had gone the way it has gone. And, I always start with this. I look at the Bureau and the rank and file, as we both know, works hard. They're day-to-day. The integrity is there. They're not looking to do something that they're not capable of doing. They're staying in their lane. They're learning along the way as they get better through case experience, through source experience, informant development, and navigating the U.S. attorney's offices, who comes in and out, what cases are going to be priority, what are not. That's all still going on as we speak. However, what my issue always was with the Bureau along the way was a quick rise in power without getting or understanding the competency that came along with working cases, with gathering evidence for cases that the United States crimes have been committed by people against the United States. That is our function in a nutshell, right? So if you don't take the time to learn those things along the way or find mentors who understand it, and you're looking for a rise to power, these are the kinds of things that we're seeing, the issues at the top that you see this administration, and I'm thinking that Kash Patel is probably going to be confirmed sometime this week. I think it's Thursday. What he is looking at and what his issues are there that are in place that need to be addressed.
So let me take it back. Let me take it back a step to make sure I'm tracking, right? So it sounds like part of what you're saying, actually, this is really interesting. Can you state for me in your own terms the mission of FBI?
Yep. So we are, if you look on our credentials, it simply says charged with gathering evidence for crimes against the United States, committed against the United States.
So that's the charter. Like the charter is crimes against the United States.
That is it in a nutshell. So
and then second, it sounds like what you're saying is that there's also kind of a fundamental, or historically a fundamental breakdown in the ascension process for FBI officers. They could get to senior ranks without having all the competency required to be able to create the type of casework that protects against or executes against prosecutions of crimes against the United States.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of that comes to light when you think about, hey, I want to be this. We used to call it setting your blue flame off. So a rocket to the top. Right? There's a lot of people who have not spent the time understanding what it means to develop a small case, maybe in a small field office, or develop a bigger case in a bigger field office, take that through the prosecutorial methods and take that through the process, and then understand from that different things that have happened where you're like, man, I'll never make that mistake again. I won't do that again. We used to say, although trials used to suck to have to go through a trial and sit through that and witness preparation, going out and serving your documents, having everything go, being at kind of catering to those federal prosecutors as they charged and put on the process of a trial, right? We used to say it sucks, but I'll never forget those best things about that was what I learned, the mistakes I learned along the way by saying, man, I'm really glad we took that to trial, even though this happened and this happened. I'll never make those mistakes again.
So
that's not what happens a lot of times.
Tell me if I'm understanding this right. So what we're reading in the headlines that's framing up this contention between Trump and the FBI, that's just kind of media buzz. In fact, what's happening is that Trump has suspected and is now taking action against what he believes to be a fundamental flaw in FBI, where senior ranking leaders are ill-equipped to actually do the mission of FBI.
Yes, that's my sense of it. And not every single one of them. There's folks that I knew along the way that came up through the ranks, that took their time at each level in order to get better, in order to be able to mentor agents, in order to be able to supervise intel analysts and others that in the offices and what we needed to do going forward, in order to understand how to deal with prosecutors and U.S. Attorney's Office. Because remember, every single administration as they come in, we'll see this shortly. We'll see this in the next month once Attorney General Biondi is actually confirmed. You'll see the changeover in these U.S. Attorney's offices. How do you navigate that? Well, if I'm coming to a field office, spending 2 years, maybe working one or two cases, immediately putting myself out to go to FBI headquarters to get promoted at the 4, 5, 6 year mark without understanding how that all works, how can I possibly get to the 11, 12 year mark or the 18, 19 year mark, different levels of responsibility and leadership, and understand what I'm supposed to be doing? That's what Trump is attacking.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he's saying, look, where we're at right now and what has happened and what I personally experienced through those search warrants and through the charges and different things that happened to him and others within his administration or his close group doesn't make sense with those who understand and are competent going forward in what they're supposed to do. Couple that with all kinds of other issues that are going on at the senior levels, you got a problem.
It's interesting because, everybody on both sides of the aisle, I don't care if you're super liberal, I don't care if you're hardcore conservative, we have to be scratching our head. How many years did FBI bring investigations against Donald Trump? How many charges did they lay out there? How many attorney generals? How many different states? How much legal effort, which means taxpayer dollars, went into trying to pin a charge on this guy?
Yep.
And yet it didn't happen, right?
Yep.
There was one state with one charge one time. And what's fascinating to me is that means all the other effort was cases that didn't get worked. It was investigations that didn't get completed into other things, into terrorists, into drug smugglers, into child perverts, into you name it, right? Like tons of work wasn't done because FBI was directing its resources into trying to close cases against Donald Trump. How is that decision made? Because it takes multiple levels, like administratively, it takes multiple levels of people to say, yes, here's money to do this. Yes, this is what you should spend your money on. And then there has to be justifiable progress in order to get more funds. This is just how the government works. So how did that happen in FBI in pursuit of these Trump charges?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point, too. And if you look back at the history of the Bureau, that's happened before, but in a much lesser fashion. So, in other words, you might have a director come in, or you might have a new attorney general or a new U.S. attorney, and they'll say, look, my priorities isn't so much on bank robberies, these next couple of years, because we see a downshift and we've got our locals trained to kind of help us out with that stuff. It's more going to be on the side of terrorism, or it's more going to be on the side of organized crime or drugs, because the crime problem in that area tends to happen in that fashion, right? It's not profiling per se. It's just understanding your crime problem in your area. So that's happened before, and that's okay. But what I see happening here is the chance to make a difference that in their heads, in these senior managers' heads, to say, man, if we pin one on this guy, and you saw Peter Strzok and his girlfriend talking about that, right? Texting about that. We can nail this guy, man. We're going to be something else. We're going to rise to the top. So that's the beginning of this culture, right? And I had just left when this started to happen. That sounds like a terrible excuse. Like, oh, DiOrio left, everything fell apart. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Now it's gotten to a level where, hey, we can move up the ranks, or we can maybe secure something better for ourselves as we move forward. Maybe a job after, maybe a consulting gig, maybe something that makes sense if we go ahead and make the huge splash, the big headline. That's the issue you have when you hear Kash Patel say stuff like, let's close down FBI headquarters and make it a museum to the deep state. He's not really saying close down headquarters. He's saying it, get the hell away from those who could influence you, maybe at the old Ebbets Grill, sitting at the bar talking about, hey, I'm a senator from Nebraska. I really need help. That should never happen. The Bureau should never have that happen. So once that kind of got to this point where it was out of control in the last 4 years or more, and it started under the Obama administration where they were listening to his phones, Trump's campaign phones. I mean, just as bad as Watergate, for God's sakes, in my opinion. But it just became a normal and natural way and course of doing business for the senior executives, for those at the senior executive level who were looking still to move to that next level. Deputy director, assistant deputy director, executive deputy directors. That's where those people are now thinking about, holy cow, we're getting these notes that are saying, you better go. And I've seen this happen before. Either you resign by Friday or we're going to fire you. Your choice, whatever you want to do. I mean, Christ, even Robert Hansen got his pension. So it's not like you're not going to get your pension. But, they need to go. It needs to change over. It needs to be different. That's what I'm seeing.
So I want to put this in layman's terms because government speak and government administrivia is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's unnecessarily complicated. And people don't understand. The average person just doesn't understand how many layers of red tape there are to kind of organize and structure government, which is a big part of why Trump is trying to find efficiency in government. Good luck, Donald Trump, and good luck, Elon Musk. I mean, I really honestly wish them luck because the government is so inefficient. But I'm going to draw a comparison here. At CIA, our mission is to collect intelligence against foreign threats to the United States. So every year, we are given a directive from the DNI that says, here are the foreign intelligence topics we want you to collect on. Mm-hmm. So senior ranking CIA officers, the only way they climb the ladder is by doing what the DNI tells them, collecting information on what the DNI says they have to collect. There's no room for politics there. The DNI is a political appointee, but it doesn't matter if the DNI says collect intelligence on rice or collect intelligence on nuclear weapons. The CIA can only tap into its own funds if it does what the DNI tells them to do. Mm-hmm. It sounds like FBI is structured differently. FBI isn't directed by some political appointee. It's directed by its own senior leadership. Its senior leadership gets to decide what cases they pursue and what cases they don't pursue. And then that senior leadership is looking towards their own personal future. Hey, I want to climb the ladder inside FBI, and or I want to be able to get some sweet consulting gig when I leave FBI. Mm-hmm. So instead of pursuing meaningful cases, they pursue these shiny object cases that are going to give them like a straight shot to the top. So there's no oversight for how FBI senior leadership are dictating the rank and file to spend their effort. Am I saying that right, Jim?
Exactly right. And the other thing, Andy, that's a big part of that is it's a short-termed kind of assignment. So, you're a special agent in charge that comes into a field office. You might be there for 2 years. You might be there for 8 months. It just depends on what the next promotion looks like for you. If your rabbi has a spot within, let's say the civil rights unit down in headquarters, guess who he's bringing along when he moves up? You. So you might be sitting in New York for a year and all of a sudden you've started to make inway. You started to talk to the U.S. attorney. You started to get things done and then you're pulled away. So it starts all over again. Where I think the issue lies is that we don't have a strong enough kind of contingency or the ability to stay on to finish the mission. So you're easily grabbed away by that shiny nickel, like you said. So, we're all going after so-and-so this month. Okay, let's go. Let's go do it. And the rank and file is simply doing what they're asked to do, which is why it's so unfair what we're seeing in the news, where 4,000 FBI agents have gotten letters, have gotten emails dropped this week saying, here's a survey. You better tell me if you were involved in any part of the January 6th stuff or any part of the Trump Mar-a-Lago raids, right? How unfair is that to a young person, maybe 8, 9, 10, 11 years in government service, thinking about the pension? You and I have talked about this forever, thinking about the pension and how great it's going to be. What a joke, right? That's a whole other topic. But at the end of the day, they're faced with, I've got kids coming up. I've got to take care of this. I'm going to move. I want to get a bigger house, a new car, whatever it looks like. And now I'm looking at 10, 11, 12 years of my time going down the drain because they're asking me to fill out a survey about something that my bosses told me I had to do. So I think when you look at that right now, it's a mess, and it's only going to get worse in the short term. Hopefully we can get somebody in there that kind of straightens this out quickly and eases the minds of those people who are doing the work. Execs aren't doing it. It's rank and file that's doing the work. So and doing it well.
Yeah, this is a great point to make, right, Jim? So neither you or I was surprised to see Donald Trump win the presidency in 2024. Mm-hmm. And I also would say that neither you or I is surprised to see that he is executing on his campaign promises aggressively. That's something Donald Trump does. But neither of us is so naive that we're going to believe that a new president doesn't make mistakes, even a returning president. So some of what Donald Trump is doing is wise and required, right? Necessary. But he's also taking some missteps along the way. Can you give me a sense? Can you give all of us a sense? What are some of the things he's doing right with his pursuit of reform, of restructuring, reorganizing, shaking up FBI? And what are some of the examples of things that are going wrong? Not necessarily Trump's doing it wrong, but under this effort, here's something that's not going right. Here's something that is going right. Can you give us a sense of that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that here's the big mistake that I see, and we kind of just talked about. I like some of the things he's doing. I think some of that dead wood needs to be moved along, because you're never going to change how they feel, and they're going to continue to be toxic and a poison as we try to move forward and get to the next level. The things that he's doing wrong is going after those people who had absolutely no ability to make their own decision as 10, 11, 12-year agents who are now being faced with, you either do this or you're going to go to the broken toy squad and you're going to sit there for the next 8 or 9 years and we're going to make your life miserable. That's what he's not recognizing. That's what no one is recognizing along the way. Why mostly, Andy? Because they haven't served in places where we have served. Right. And that's a big issue. And it's the same thing with the military. And those are the same issues going on right now at DOD. Right. It's very similar. So when I look at this and I say, man, we need to be in touch. And I don't know if you knew this. I think you did, but I had written a letter off to Mr. Patel. And it was just basically as Jim DiOrio, retired FBI agent and person who cares about people in the Bureau. And all I said in there was, I think that you need to put together some type of board of directors or advisory board, retired agents, retired U.S. attorneys, retired federal prosecutors, retired local law enforcement, that can give you an idea of what the day-to-day looks like for that street, that brick FBI agent that Kash talks about. He's talked about it in his confirmation hearings. He's talked about it, how important that is to get feedback from those folks. That's what's not happening, so that there's no message being delivered to the rank and file. And I can tell you, because I've just been talking to several of them over the course of the last 4 or 5 days. Hey, Jim, what's it look like on the outside? If I got to leave, what can I do? Can you help me kind of move forward? That's scary stuff. Yeah. That's scary stuff, because you and I know you go through phases when you leave, right? It's like, what am I going to do? My value is what? And then you find your value and you realize you're just fine. But it takes a minute to kind of get to that point. So I think there needs to be a reassurance. I'm looking forward to leadership getting back to the Bureau. And I think Patel is the guy, and delivering a message in such a way where he reinstills confidence in the Bureau so that they can now go out and do what they do best. Lord knows they haven't been able to do what they do best over the last 4 or 5 years. It's been a damn mess.
So this is fascinating, Jim, because it sounds like what we're discovering here, at least a lot of this is news to me. I have never been familiar with FBI's structure, how it directs its resources, how it directs its investigative efforts. Sometimes it has always seemed very illogical to me, because it seems like sometimes FBI pours resources into an unwinnable case. And as a CIA officer, if we poured resources into a case that wasn't yielding intelligence, we were like slapped across the head. We went to the broken toy equivalent at CIA, the slow horses squad, right? So it's always been confusing to me because I'm like, who is the ultimate decision maker for FBI? Because we have a Senate and a congressional, we have a congressional intelligence committee that we have to speak to. Like, we have to justify our operations against Congress. Is there anything like that for FBI?
Well, you have the director going up to the Hill, right? But if you watch any time that Wray and even directors in the past before him, anytime they were up there, sometimes they'll just say, we can't answer that question because it's an ongoing investigation. That's the easy bail, right? That truly is the easy bail. You made a great point, and really, when I used to think about, let's just take public corruption. I was very familiar with public corruption in New Jersey when Chris Christie was the U.S. attorney. And he only brought cases that he knew he could win, right? But that was understood by the Bureau. We knew that. So we didn't waste, we'd have one or two meetings, and we'd have maybe the chief of special prosecutions who ran corruption would say, guys, look, if you get these 15 things, I'll go forward. But if you don't, I'm not going to. And what he's telling you is, I know you can't get those 15 things. So stop wasting your time on that. And that was okay back in those days,
right?
To say, we're not going to get there. So cases we could win, we would bring, right? That's not happening anymore. They're just bringing cases based on who it is. They're not following the evidence. They're just building the evidence around the case that they need to have.
And this is important because what you're talking about now is what is publicly being called weaponization.
Yeah.
Weaponization of FBI.
Yep.
When individuals get to choose how government resources are spent prosecuting investigations into other individuals, that's an area that is rife for abuse. Yep. Because I don't like Jim DiOrio, but I have a deep pocket of money that's taxpayer money. I can just spend that money to hunt down Jim DiOrio, because if I get it, if I hit the lottery, boom, I'm going to have a sweet gig with Booz Allen or Raytheon when I leave FBI. And if I miss it, who cares? I'm still getting 20 years of retirement along the way. And that's been allowed to happen for a long time. Whereas now what we're seeing is a flushing out of senior ranking officials at FBI. And what we're hoping we will see next is the chance for those experienced, seasoned junior and mid-level officers to broaden their leadership abilities correctly and elevate correctly.
Absolutely. And they need that guidance. They need to learn how to be leaders within a bureaucracy. I think the same thing we're seeing, and what's bothering people and what's bothering some people within the FBI, and I'm not speaking for anybody in particular, but just what we talked about, being able to go after somebody just because, is happening with this administration coming back the other way. We need it to stop. We need the circus needs to stop, and Patel needs to get confirmed, in my opinion. And then he needs to move forward with this leadership program in order to make it better. It's not just about boxes you checked. It's not just about taking credit for what other people did along the way. I can't tell you how many times I used to look at something that was written out like a KSA in order to get promoted and be like, man, there's like 50 people that actually said they did that case. How could 50 people have done the case? It's either one person or two, maybe. So I think we're seeing the exact thing happening that's happened in the Bureau coming back at them. And a lot of them don't know how to react. And your upper management is being told, resign by Friday or you're gone, whatever the date is.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen before. Very small scale and for very, for kind of some awful offenses, things that were messed up and they were asked get out or whatever. So I think you're seeing it coming. What we used to do, or what was done, and I won't say we used to do, we used to follow, not be damned, we used to follow the evidence in order to put forward a winnable case. Hey, there's some things that you just can't get. So even if you put the lid on tight on evidence, there's no need to kind of go out and go any deeper than that, because it starts to get to a gray area, and we're not gray area folks.
So Jim, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for making time so we could address this, collapse on this quickly in the news cycle. I hope it goes without saying, any FBI agent that reaches out to you that says, hey, how do I figure it on the outside? Everyday Spy is there to help them 100% of the way. Whether they need an introduction, whether they need some sort of handshake, whether they want to have a conversation, us and everybody in the family at Everyday Spy is there, right? All of our naval people, all of our military people, all of our FBI people, our Secret Service people, CIA people, we're all here.
Yeah, 100%.
And I can't wait to see what comes up in the next few weeks. I can't wait to get you here in the safe house in person, Jim, so we can have a conversation like this together in my own studio. And otherwise, I can't wait to talk to you soon. Folks, if you want to learn more about how Jim DiOrio works, about how I work, about how CIA and FBI train, go ahead and click on the link in the description below, and you'll get direct access to one of our quizzes that helps you identify your natural spy skills moving forward. Thank you very much for joining us. And Jim, I can't wait to see you again soon.
Can't wait, Andy. Thanks a million for our opportunity here.